Hi, everyone. Welcome back. In this particular video, I'm going to talk to you about annotated bibliographies. And if you're in a writing course or if you're in a psychology course, if you're in a research course, you might have a professor say, before you write the full paper, submit an annotated bibliography. But many times students are like, well, I don't know how to do it. So I'm making this brief video as a way of giving support for those of you who are trying to figure out how to do an annotated bibliography. Now, I will say that each discipline has a different formula in terms of references or citations. But what I'm going to teach you is APA style and in the 7th edition. So, all right, I'm going to break this into 3 parts. The first part is going to be the slideshow. Then I'm going to go into examples, and then I'm going to talk to you about the resource that I'm uploading as well in a Word file. So let's start with the PowerPoint. And as I said, this is a brief lecture. It's not meant to be very long. And I like to credit my source. This particular lecture comes from Purdue University. And you may have heard of Purdue OWL. And if you haven't, I strongly encourage you to get familiar with Purdue OWL because they have a lot of great resources in their library about how to do citations, how to do different things. And I have relied on them for several lectures, actually, as it relates to APA style and whatnot. So let's start with the word annotated bibliography. Now, it's interesting, there are 2 words, and I'm going to go from the second word backwards. Let's start with, well, what is a bibliography? A bibliography, simply put, is a list of sources that you're going to use for your research study. And they could be books, journals, web pages, periodicals like newspapers and magazines, or whatnot. So it's just the list of sources. That's a bibliography. Now, bibliography, that term is one term that's used, but there are other synonyms depending on the discipline. For example, if you're in a writing class, you might hear the term works cited. And works cited is where they list all their sources. And in APA style, we use the term references. So for a psychology class, do not put works cited. You can put references at the end of your paper. And if it's an annotated bibliography, you could still use annotated bibliography because that's not your final paper. But so in APA style, you might have either the term annotated bibliography or the term references. All right. Now, bibliographic information include the author, the title, the publisher, anything that's relevant about the source that if someone were to read it, they could retrieve it. And I'm going to go through various sources as examples and what should be included. Now, we talked about what a bibliography is that's a list of sources. What does the term annotated bibliography mean? Well, in order to appreciate that, we need to know what an annotation is. An annotation is a summary or evaluation of a given source. So when you do an annotated bibliography, typically you put the reference in APA style, and then you write your summary of the source you read. So in these annotations, you might want to think about what are the main arguments being presented? What is the point of the book or the article? What are the topics being covered? If someone asked what this book was about, what would you say? These are the kind of questions that allow you to provide a summary. So in 3 to 5 sentences, tell me what the book or article was about. Now, the length of your annotation will determine how detailed your summary is. There are short annotations and there are long annotations. In a short annotation, it's a few sentences. In a long annotation, it can be a few paragraphs. All right. So after you summarize, you want to assess, right? You want to say, is this source useful? How does this source compare with other sources in the bibliography, right? So now it's sort of like in the previous lecture, we talked about brainstorming. Now you're trying to make an affinity between your sources. This source says this other source is related to it. Excuse me. So you want to see how the sources fit in. Now, if the sources are about a similar topic, but find different things than a previous source, you can compare and contrast the sources as well in your annotated bibliography. You want to think about, is the information reliable? Well, in a research methods class, your professor is not going to want you to use unreliable sources. They're going to want you to use peer-reviewed journals. They're going to want you to use textbooks, maybe. They're going to want you to use edited volumes of books that are scientifically driven. They're going to question many web pages unless it's .edu or .gov. And then again, so you want to make sure your sources are reliable. You want to make sure that they're objective. They don't have a hidden agenda, and think about what the goal is. So you summarize, you assess, and then you reflect. Sorry about the redundancy. Once you've summarized, right, you have to ask, well, was the source helpful to you? How does it shape the argument that you're trying to make? How does it fit in with your research project? Has it changed how you think about the topic? These are the reflection. So summarize, assess, reflect. Now, you might ask yourself, well, why do I need to do an annotated bibliography? Why can't I just write my paper? Well, the answer is that your paper will be a better product if you do an annotated bibliography. So the annotated bibliography allows you to prepare your document in an organized way. So merely collecting sources might be useful, but trying to figure out how do they fit in with one another, that's where the annotated bibliography comes in. So it forces you to read each source more carefully. It allows you to critically examine each source. It allows you to determine where the state of the research is, if there are any gaps in a research. They can be positioned in an organized way to present your thesis argument, and so forth. There are many different purposes, but so one is to help you organize your paper. But I will tell you that it's less common, but there are scholars who also publish annotated bibliographies. And the goal of an annotated bibliography where you publish it is sort of to give the state of the science. Where is the scientific discipline about concept X? Where is, for example, microaggressions? You might have an annotated bibliography. All the research on microaggression. Where is the research? Where are the gaps in the research? Where do you might list through a database search all the articles you found and a paragraph about them, and that could be very, very useful. Provides a comprehensive overview. It's not necessarily for a paper you're writing, but it's more for other researchers. Now, I have never written an annotated bibliography that has gotten published, right? So, and you may never do that, but I just wanted you to know that in addition to it helping you write your paper, there are people who publish annotated bibliography to help other people. So you might want to look to see if there is an annotated bibliography on your topic. Now, the format of annotated bibliography, that depends on the class. So it's very important for you to ask your professor for directions or guidelines. Now, I'm only going to talk about APA style or APA format because that, in a psychology class, that's what is expected. So the annotations, each one is written in paragraph form. As I said, the length of annotations can be anywhere from a few sentences to a few pages. The length depends on the purpose. In my classes, I oftentimes ask people to write 3 to 5 sentences, because when they write a massive annotation, they're going to have to shrink it down anyway when they write their introduction. So you don't want to just write and write and write and duplicate either the abstract or duplicate the whole paper. You want to hit the main points. So try and think about the 3 goals, right? Summarize, reflect, and assess. If you accomplish all 3 of those goals, you'll be all right. So that is the slideshow, but I have a couple other things for you. I would like to now go into an example of an annotated bibliography using the 7th edition. And I want to thank, UIW Writing Center for this resource. So I'm going to share that with you now. And what's nice about this is things shifted, right? So this information applies to the 7th edition. It replaces the 6th edition. Now, as was mentioned earlier, if you look at your 3 goals are to summarize, to assess, and to reflect. So summarize the main points of the article, assess whether the source is useful and reliable, and reflect how this source can be applied to your work. But that isn't sufficient for you, right? I want you to see what an annotation looks like, an annotated bibliography. So the first annotated bibliography that's written, or the first source, is a journal article. Now, I have a whole nother lecture on how to write in APA style, so I won't belabor the point, but the brief aspect is you have the author's name, the year, the title of the article, the journal is published in, the volume, the page number, and the DOI. Very important, the DOI is now hyperlinked without the blue. Now, under there, you see all these lines. This is the annotation. The purpose of this meta-analysis was to compile every instance of early lightsaber use and discover its origin. Fisto and Kenobi used many galactic databases and archives to find evidence of the clean, blackened slash marks that are characteristics of lightsabers. All right, and then it goes on and on and on, and then it talks about the Jedi. It's playing on, I guess, Star Wars, a little play. So it summarizes it, and then it talks, this is crucial, after it summarizes what the article said, the main limitation, now we're talking about reliability. The main limitation that the researchers noted was that it did not understand why the Jedi needed power pack attached to the early lightsabers. It is strange that these lightsabers needed so much external energy, right? And then again, the research missed other things. And then the last sentence is, I plan to model their research methods and procedures. So now you're talking about how you're going to use it, right? So if we go back to our 3 pieces of an annotated bibliography, did they do a summary? Yes, they did a pretty good summary in about 5 sentences. Is the source useful or reliable? Well, they identified 2 limitations of that source, and then they reflected on how they're going to apply it. So they're going to apply the research approach. In the second source that they demonstrate, Skywalker, right? Again, this is a play on Star Wars, so it's not real, but it's just to keep your attention. This would be a web page. Now, I strongly dissuade my students from using web pages or .coms because there could be questions about the reliability of the source, right? So it talks about the web page, it talks about the instructions of how to gather lightsaber crystals, shape it into metal. They teach you how to make it. So Skywalker presented information clear and concisely. So that's an assessment of its reliability. And then the guide is relevant to my research because it explores how modern lightsabers are made. Again, now you're talking about how you're going to use it. So the first one was a little bit longer. It was a journal. The second one that's used is a web page. And then the third one is a book. Now, APA style changed with books as well. We no longer add the location of the publisher, so the city and state is no longer there. But I know this is a book based on the format of the reference, right? So Han Solo and Calrissian. They're the authors, the year, the title of the book, which is italicized, and then the publisher. So this book addressed the history behind lightsabers, and then it writes a summary of the book. A lot of students in a research class struggle with getting books for their research because it takes too long to read them, right? If you have a semester to write a paper or do research, or you have 2 semesters at most, you may feel that you don't want to have a lot of books in your annotated bibliography because you have to read it. So here's the summary, and then the limitations are listed. I noted the following limitation, and then in terms of how it can be used, right? Their book is relevant to my research because ... So in all 3 of these cases, you see the writer of the annotated bibliography writes a summary, evaluates the source, its reliability, and then applies it to their particular study that they're doing. That is expected of you. So far you had a PowerPoint demo, you had a PDF of examples of what they look like, but I have one more thing for you, and that is a Word document where I tell you exactly how I want it. So I formatted your annotated bibliography in a way that you can't make a mistake in APA style, right? So you, again, first name, last name, the college, the course it's for, my name, professor, the date, and then you go through your annotated bibliography, all of your sources. So I'm not going to restate APA style and references, but notice you start with the bibliographic information, then you have the summary. So following your citation on a new line, you're going to put the information about the source. Make sure that your source is flush with your hanging indent. So you're going to hit tab to move it over so it matches a hanging indent. Again, you want to start with your summary. Then you want to evaluate how the strengths and weaknesses of the article, any limitations related to reliability. And then you want to talk about how you're going to use it for your particular material. Now, the entire page is double spaced. APA style requires everything to be double spaced. Now, in your formatting, again, I put all the different things. If you're writing a book or if you're doing a journal, I tell the author's last name, first initial, middle initial, year. If it's a book, I give you that. If it's a journal article, I give you that. And I didn't restate the things I already said because now you're already familiar with the 3 goals of an annotated bibliography. So I just say text, more text, text, more text, text, more text. You get the idea. So these 3 things will be populated into the course to help you with your annotated bibliography. And with that, I'm going to stop my screen share and I'm going to stop the recording. I hope that this is helpful as we start to develop our annotated bibliographies. Take care, everybody. Until next time.